welcome to Let's Get It, the Atheist Roundtable. Toss the mic, tell us what's good tonight. Get this man a goddamn cam so we can plan to crush tonight. It's murder. It was the case they gave him. Even Jesus couldn't save him. He believes he'll slay him. Murdershed Steve got these theists on their fucking knees. Ask T Jump where the Murdershed be.
Chop it up.
Why you asking all these questions? What are you suggesting? Why am I second guessing? Then GSEB surgically removing these hypotheses. Yeah, and get out the way. Get out the way. This kid don't play. If you got a God, I'd call him. If you got a book, I'd hide him. Just Jeff. Question so hard, they'll punch you in the chest. So the best bet, invest in a bulletproof vest. Oz, Ozzy, kamikaze. Run the track back and attack what we lack. Stand back, I unpack the counter-attack. And the comeback, the sad sack. They should've never said that. And faith is bullshit as a matter of fact.
Which faith is bullshit.
Man, we're going down on a deep dive.
Which faith is bullshit.
Hey, somebody mute Oz.
Which faith is bullshit. Which faith is bullshit. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Atheist Roundtable, and we have another TART live show. I'm Oz, and we got just Jeff.
What's up?
The trolling one. What's going on, man?
You know, just waking up from my midday nap, get some trolling going.
So you got a little cat nap?
Oh yeah, it was pretty good.
Now, when
I
you
get my
cat
best
nap,
sleep during the day.
when you cat nap, do you nap on the cat house or whatever that is behind you?
Yeah, the one right here.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's usually where I do it. It looks like it supports a good amount of weight.
I can see you go in the fetal position, crawling up on a cat pedestal.
That's what I do after discussing things with theists. They just hit me so hard with their logic and facts. I just have to curl up in a ball and just cry. I mean, once they're like, Jesus is real, I can feel it. I'm like, well, what am I supposed to say to that? Really? Like, that's sound logic.
Hey, if you felt it, you dealt it. That's what my grandpa said anyway. I don't know. I don't know, Jeff. I don't know. But Jeff, we had an interesting show last night.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, it was there were bits that were suspenseful, other bits that were
Hard to watch.
Cringeworthy.
Yeah, cringeworthy.
There are other bits that were completely entertaining, and I laughed my ass off.
Mm-hmm.
So I know you got to be apart for a minute, but you have got to view it since then, in its entirety. How'd you feel about the show from last night?
I mean, I like being able to. I do think that we need, as our show evolves, some of us to take some time, step out, and let others shine for a little bit. And I have to say that I really enjoy having somebody like T Jump on, and his. I wasn't the biggest T Jump fan beginning, and especially because I think he has so much knowledge about stuff that he can be a little intimidating. You know what I mean? And so but then getting to know him and understanding where he comes from and what he does, for a living and all that other stuff, then it just makes much more sense. And I enjoy watching him work sometimes and setting him up.
Yeah, he's like I said last night, I have to reiterate all of it, but I do respect his grind and that that he's really worked hard to put himself in the position he's in. As far as really self-learning, self-teaching, and going after the information. And I'll just tell you right now, whether you're coming on to the Atheist Roundtable or whatever channel or platform it's on, if you're sleeping on T-Jump, if you're sleeping on that man, oh, I pity the fool. I pity the fool. Yeah, that's a bad look. That's a bad look. So, but there were a couple things last night that were entertaining. Well, first, Jeff, is there anything that sticks out? Is there a moment or two that sticks out to you from last night?
I mean, just the The willingness, I think, of the people that entered the chat to be there was also a good, thing, and not to disappear or to not engage just because of the overwhelming group. I guess like there's a lot of people there. There's a lot of stuff going on. So,
yeah, we had a good crowd of 40 or at least 40 or 50 people hanging out all night, for almost the entire stream. If you go back and rewatch it, you'll notice it. But I think one of my favorite parts is more of an undertone thing that happened is when David Gonzalez was on Vindicated Soul. And the only reason I say his full name is because he's been on here by his full name several times. But every time he started to preach, Apostle Mike made sure that there was some like evangelical organs and stuff like we're getting ready to have a praise break, in the middle of Vindicated Soul talking. So that was the one that was entertaining. And then when T Jump was like, oh, I mean, we could, to the one guest that was on, I mean, if you want to go back over that issue again or that subject, we can, but I'll just crush you all over again. And I was like,
I think what T Jump does that I can't do, and that's why I'm simultaneously jealous and in awe, is the way that he can articulate the argument that I have in my brain in such a way that it makes the most impact with the shortest number of words. And that is a skill that I think I would like to have, or at least work on getting better.
Yeah, and I would agree. He's not wordy. It's just straight. It's very concise. It's very, very pointed.
It doesn't require a lot of excuses or a high level of knowledge to understand, because it's not a difficult argument. He phrases it in such a way that it is what it is. There's no debate to it in many cases.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? Big shout out to Kate Neves. She showed up again last night, and when she could. And this goes for her and I both, but trying to just kind of get in where we fit in, so to speak.
Yeah.
She did offer some great, either questions or commentary, or perspective on that. And she's a force to be reckoned with, moving in the future. So,
and she's just getting started out. We can only imagine where she'll be in 6 months or a year or wherever. So, it'll be very interesting to see her develop that.
Well, and you can look at the whole gang on TART. If you would have heard us all talking, 8-9 months ago, whenever it was we started this, all these shenanigans, we are not today who we were. We've all developed and gotten better. So, Jeff, we have a really cool guest with us tonight, and the more I've not just watch his content, but I've been on a couple of his TikTok lives, and then him and I started, texting, and then talked a little today. The more I'm talking to him, he's a good guy, and I'm really eager to get this conversation. So, without further ado, Jeff, let's bring on the guest of the evening.
Joe.
What's up, Ricky? How you doing, man?
How's it going, man? I brushed my teeth so my breath wouldn't smell bad during the podcast. So that's pretty much where I'm at.
You're the first guest that actually got that fucking memo. I'm glad to hear that.
Check your email, people.
Read your damn emails. No, we're super excited to have you on, and we'll get into your TikTok stuff here in a bit. But we met on that platform, and a lot of people know this by now. A lot of the guests that we have on come from that platform. So we've become more and more grateful for that platform, because you can meet a significant amount of people pretty quickly. On there. So we're grateful for that relationship or friendship that we're developing with you. Appreciate your experience, what you bring, not just to that platform, but to the atheist community. And I see your voice and your perspective being one that could be very strong, given your background. So before we really jump into the dialogue that I want to get into, I want to make sure that everybody understands fully where you come from, how you've got to where you're at. So Ricky, please share with myself and the viewers your religious experience, your background. What was kind of the tipping points that started to, I guess, start to crumble the walls or the foundation of that belief, so to speak, and then ultimately end up to where now today, presently, you lack belief. You are an atheist.
Yeah. So growing up, I had a pretty basic exposure to religion. Like I went to church every now and then with my grandma, but I didn't really think I was Christian or anything until I was 15. I was invited to a youth group. I was a very awkward teenager, didn't have a lot of friends. Got to that youth group, and everyone there was just super excited to see me and super glad I was there, and I was hooked. They gave me that social, interaction that I needed without realizing it. So I got very heavily involved in the church after that. I joined the drama team. I joined the worship band playing bass guitar. I did missions trips, street evangelisms. I went to seminars with Ray Comfort and Kirk Cameron. Like I did everything you can think of. I was very lost in the sauce. And then I joined the military as an infantryman and in the Army. I was immediately deployed to Iraq. I was there for a year. I think this made me very cynical when I got out of the military and went back to my hometown and started going back to church, and decided to, since I had the GI Bill, any degree I wanted would be paid for by the military. So I went to the Bible college to become a pastor, because that's what I'd always wanted to do. I just never had, a way to pay for it, pay for the schooling. So I went there and I got a degree in biblical theology. I chose theology because I was always very interested in the Bible and what it taught itself. I wasn't really interested in preaching or being a pastor as much as learning about the Bible. So that's the degree I picked, and that's what I went with. And I became really interested in apologetics. I took an apologetics class and I was hooked. And if you don't know, that's the defense of the faith. That's where you learn how to defend your faith to non-believers or believers of other faiths. So I got very heavily interested in that. I read a lot of Dr. William Lane Craig's books. I watched a lot of debates between him and other atheists like Christopher Hitchens. I read The God Delusion as a Christian. So I got really into this. But as my education progressed, I always went with where the facts were. If I was presented with enough information that contradicted my personal beliefs, I would be willing to leave them. I stopped believing in hell and God's omniscience as a Christian. I was still a practicing Christian. I just stopped believing in things, and they just started to fall one right after the other. Shortly after leaving college or graduating, I kind of just stopped believing any of it, but I was still a member of a church. I was still in the worship band. And I was really just going through the motion for a good few years. During that time, I was going through a divorce, a very, very, very nasty divorce. I won't go into the details of that, but it was very hard on me. At one point in my car, I was crying, and I was like, God, and I didn't ask God to fix my marriage because I knew he didn't work that way. I was like, God, you need to do something to show me that you are still there and you are still there for me. And as soon as I asked that question, I realized he was never there in the first place. I was just always taught he was. And suddenly everything in the Bible made sense because none of the Bible made sense. So here I am. I've sat dormant for a couple of years. Always wanted to get involved in the atheist community. Just didn't really have a platform. And then TikTok came about, and well, here we are.
And here we are. So, and it's what I appreciate about continuing to hear more and learn more about your story, Ricky, is you and I have a lot of similarities, not just the brand of Christianity, but even just a little bit, you sharing about your divorce. It was about the time that I started was in the heat of my deconversion process, I guess you would say. I went through a very nasty divorce, so it was like I was losing, not only was I losing, my wife and my kids and my house and everything else that I busted my ass to earn. Now the thing that I, other than my family, that I invested the most time in, which was my relationship with God, and then my time invested in the local church, I now found all of this time because I didn't have the family. I didn't have the church. I didn't have the belief. And I found myself to be very lonely. And, I was very fortunate to meet, which is now my wife and my best friend today, to meet her, to really have someone to talk to and lean on. But other than her, every other relationship that I had, even via church and religion, fell apart and went away. It didn't even fall apart. It just disappeared. It went away. I had no more of those relationships. And still to this day, I share that other than my brother, which was the pastor, there's not a single person from that church that has ever reached out to me, texted me, called me, anything like that, which is still, for me, it's sad to me. I'm not bitter over it anymore. I used to be. I'm not bitter over it. It's more sad that friendship was based in the religion and not just us as humans caring about each other and loving each other. Did you experience anything like that?
I have one person that I maintain a friendship with. He lives in another state, but he calls me every now and then. I call him every now and then just to check in. And when I visit my home state, I try to hang out with him, have dinner or something. I don't know if he's Christian anymore or not. He's not a part of that church anymore. But I had a couple of other people, one person specifically, would text me regularly, call me, and they even bought me that book. I don't have enough faith to be an atheist. It's like, hey, just give this a read. And I read it, and I was like, this is the stupidest shit I've ever read in my life. Where you think this is going to reconvert me? Like, yeah, you don't understand. Like it runs deeper than that guy. It's not how it works. But other than that, like I've had a couple of people like text me, but nobody else is really pushy. And things like my pastor and my youth pastor, never heard anything from them, which is fine. Like you said, I'm not bitter about it. I get it. I don't really care. But yeah, it's a weird place. You definitely just lose all these connections all at once, and that can be painful.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And so the one statement you made was you made a decision or a choice to continue your education, as far as biblical theology and continuing to dig. Usually that is, from what I've learned so far, is that's kind of the tipping point for a lot of people, is like, well, I'm going to dig a little further into this. And that's when they really start to become skeptical. So can you identify or point out whether it was something specific that you learned or a scripture that you got more insight into? What was kind of the catalyst or that pivotal point where it was like, oh man, I don't know about this anymore? Was there a moment like that for you?
Yeah, I'd have to say it was when I started questioning God's omniscience. Because once you start questioning that, everything else just kind of falls like dominoes. Like, if God's not omniscient, what's the point of prayer? What's the point of anything? Like, how can he be this all-powerful creator who created mankind and then killed them all with a flood because he fucked up? And then he apologized for making Saul king, or he said he expressed regret for making Saul king. Noah changed his mind because he was going to wipe out like all the Israelites, I think, or whatever it was. And Noah changed his mind. I'm like, God is sounding awful human here. And another issue is like, so I realized God's not interacting with people today the way he was in the Bible, because that's the whole thing about faith is believing without seeing. Well, people in the Bible didn't need faith to believe. Like, God interacted with them in a very real way. He's not doing that now. and he could if he wanted to, but he doesn't exist. So, I'd say that was the tipping point for me.
Okay, interesting. For me personally, the one that and still, three something years, into my, skepticism, my disbelief, atheism, I still just can't wrap my brain around original sin.
Yeah.
It's like, why is that necessary? As an all-loving, all-knowing creator, why is original sin necessary? And then as if we don't have to suffer enough in this lifetime, if we can't believe, because belief isn't a choice, in my opinion, if I can't believe because you have not given me the reason to believe, or the evidence to believe, then I have to suffer for eternity more. That's a tough pill for me to swallow.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. The whole concept that we're born evil, we're born into sin, we're born destined to go to hell because we have a sin nature is pretty fucking bananas when you actually sit down and think about it.
Yeah, agreed. So first of all, Ricky, thank you for sharing that. I always love transparency, when we're talking about former, especially deeply held beliefs like you and I had. And well, I won't speak for you. Just real quick, Ricky, what brand of Christianity were you involved in?
My denomination was Assemblies of God, which is a charismatic Pentecostal.
Okay. Yep. And that's how I grew up. Charismatic, Pentecostal, evangelical, like they all kind of got it was inbred at that point. They all just kind of called each other, by the same tags. But to me, that's a tough one to get out of, man. It's a tough, because it is so dogmatic and it is so guilt driven.
Yes.
That if you're doing this or you're doing that, and when Seth Andrews was on, a month or so ago, we talked about that, whereas, well, if you're listening to secular music, you better burn it. You better burn it. And things like that, where it was like, I look back at it now, I'm like, man, it's literally instruments playing chords and somebody singing lyrics. That's like, that's all it is. But there's so much, there's so much energy, put behind it, that they then use that to control the minds and make people feel guilty. And then if you don't do what they think you're supposed to do, then you don't have enough faith, or you don't believe enough. You're not praying hard enough, or at the very worst, the devil done got you. The devil done got you.
Yep. Classic.
So now everybody, most of our viewers know, my upbringing, what I came out of, and Assemblies of God. I'm very familiar with one of my mom's best friends. She was a music minister. One of her best friends was a music minister at a AOG church, which they did an album together and everything. So it's it was all locked in. Same kind of business. But what we want to do, and refer back to even the thumbnail, is when we think about Christianity, and we'll keep it specific to that, not just religion, because that's broad, but within Christianity, the good, the bad, and the ugly. There are good things that I took, not from the religion, so to speak, or Christianity, so to speak, but the experience that I had. And before I say anything, for you, Ricky, are there one or two things that you say, these are good things that I was able to take away and apply even now that I'm an atheist?
Yeah, I'd say, like I was saying before, I was craving like social affirmation, and I got that. And as I got older and I got into like a young adults group setting, I gained a very close, tight knit group of friends. And we genuinely had a lot of fun together. Like we'd go to each other's houses, play rock band, it's the same fun anybody else would have, except there was just no cussing or alcohol. So I have very fond memories of those friendships, and I do miss them to this day. So that's probably something I took. It's not really something that carries over into now, but it's something I do genuinely miss and appreciate when it happened.
So if I hear you correctly, the camaraderie, the team, the family type thing, that's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
The community, yeah. And most of the, most of the former or ex Christians believers that we talk to, that's usually either the first or second thing that they bring up. When even if it's a private conversation where it's like, I just miss the community, I miss the friendships, I miss the camaraderie, and for me, I will say the same thing. First and foremost, is it was I felt like I had that community where no matter what happened, what went wrong, like somebody had my back. And then not even those times, but just, whether it's like you said, there's no cussing or drinking or anything, but if the Super Bowl's on or, because I was a big sports nut back then, or it's the NCAA championships or the Final Four, I had all those people that we could hang out with, have a good time, laugh, and there were no cares. We just had fun. So there were those things that were valuable to me. Then, and some of the other things that I've taken away from it, and this is not, it's going to sound like I'm being facetious when I say this, but I'm not. Even in my business life, there are structures that I learned within how to run and operate a church service, how you format, how you format a service, how you format a conference, how you all these little things that you do, how you, even a rehearsal, if you're doing music, you said you're a bass player, I was a drummer, how you structure a rehearsal, how do you make sure that everybody's time, that we're using it efficiently and we're productive, and at the end of the day we're producing results. So some of those the mechanics of it, absolutely, I took things from it. So there are things that you and I and anybody can take away from it. But those things, then when you go big picture and you start to zero in, those are really irrelevant, because now when we start to talk about the more negative impacts and the long lasting effects, whether it's traumatic or some of the mental health issues that some people suffer walking out of it, those are much more serious than just talking about how we build a service or a conference. So for me, on this one, we say, the good we talked about, and it is going to be brief because there's not a lot of good that I took out of it. I don't know about you, Ricky, but there's only a couple things good or positives that I did extract from it. But we talk about the good, the bad. Well, the bad for me, first and foremost, is I found out really quick how shallow my relationships were. As much as I had the community, I had all that. I realized the bad part of it was they weren't really friendships; they were acquaintances. And if they were relationships, they were based on convenience. I share all the time that I played drums and I led small groups and did youth ministry, did all that. But I was also the lead pastor's brother, so people, it was like that automatic, like, oh, well, he's, so-and-so's brother. And they wanted to be my friend or have a relationship because of my relationship to my brother. But as soon as everything fell apart, guess what? I found out really quick, I didn't really have friends. I just had people around me, and so that was my, one of them. As far as bad, what was not the ugly, but what was one or two of the bad things that happened to you?
I would say the bad is the guilt that that religion teaches you. You're constantly. I made a video about this earlier. Excuse me. I made a TikTok about this earlier today, actually. How talking about the relationship aspect of being a Christian, how you're encouraged to constantly further your relationship with God, and if you're not doing that, you feel guilty. And maybe I felt it more than other people do, but other people did. I felt very guilty anytime I was not reading my Bible enough, or anytime I wasn't spending enough time in prayer, or if I listened to a secular song, like there's a Marilyn Manson song I really liked. I felt guilty as hell listening to that shit, but I did anyway. So religion inherently makes people feel guilty for enjoying their life, and that is some toxic shit. And I really want them to experience what it's like breaking free of that.
Yeah, same here. It's the guilt and the shame that that just gets. It's not just there. It's like downloaded. Your brain gets programmed. It's downloaded that if you do this, and Christopher Hitchens refers to it all the time. I mean, many people do, but he really hit home on the thought crimes. Like he really hit home on that a lot.
Thought crimes, yeah, it's a good term.
And it's like, you're actually going to penalize me because I have a brain, like my brain goes a certain direction, and like I get penalized for that. Like I now I'm a criminal, and I deserve a punishment because my brain thought a certain way. And the guilt that entraps you or engulfs you because of that is, it's fucking crazy.
Yeah. I like the way you put that down. They download it into you. It's very true. That's a good way to put it.
Yeah, it's it's unfortunate. And I went to I had an end goal in mind. I couldn't stick around long enough today, but I went to a evangelical apostolic church this morning with the goal in mind too. I wanted to talk to one of the leaders and kind of like interview them at the end, but I couldn't find anybody, and then I had to leave. But man, it was the first 10 minutes or so, it was like, oh, this brings back a lot of really shitty memories.
Oh, bad.
Then once I kind of cycled through that and funneled and focused on, okay, this is why I'm here. And I'm looking around, it's like, this is like, these people again it's been downloaded and they're programmed to think that this is the norm. Like
yes.
this is how we act. But I guarantee you, like there's one lady in particular that was like down in the altar area. If you've never been to church, there's a area up in front where you can go and, depending on what church you're in, dance and spin, do whatever you do. But this lady was literally like having convulsions. Now, my son that was with me has not been indoctrinated in church like I was, and his eyes are like, and the whole time I'm like, oh my God, man, And what's sad is they don't even realize it, because they wouldn't go to work and do that.
Yeah,
they're not going to go to work and start having convulsions if they hear somebody say Jesus's name, or say a prayer or something like that. So that's when I say that, the programming, the downloading, that's what I'm like. You actually justify that kind of behavior, where it's like, why are you having shaking fits right now?
Yep.
Why are you spinning around? You don't do that at home. You don't do that at work. But when, for some reason, when you're in this building, you do that.
Surrounded by these people that you're trying to get affirmation from.
Yep.
Yeah.
Acceptance, approval, love. It's the pursuit of all those things. And when all you have, the reason I brought that up is when all you have is guilt and shame put in front of you, guess what you always chase? Approval, acknowledgement. You're okay. It's okay to be okay when you're here, but not anywhere else.
Yep.
And that kind of deceit and manipulation. But as far as the ugly, I could probably talk for a very long time, actually, more about the ugly, because with coming from a family that my when they're married, it's both of them, but my family being in full-time ministry for most of my childhood, and literally seeing the underbelly of evangelical, charismatic church is disgusting. It's disgusting. Yes. And so there's a lot of the ugly that I could dig up and that I could talk about. But the one thing that sticks out to me the most as a mental health, first of all, patient, and one that suffers from a lot of diagnosis, is now looking back, how many years of my life were not wasted, but they were my experiences and relationships and things like that were at least minimized or negatively impacted, because all I was ever told was, well, no, you're not depressed. That's not anxiety. That's not this. That's either you're not praying enough, or you don't have enough faith, or you're possessed. I had multiple people tell me I was possessed. And even at times when I was suicidal, it was, well, then you have a devil. Then once I left religion, I left the faith and started talking to professionals. I found out that there's medications, there's therapy, there's talk therapy. And now I'm the happiest I've ever been in my life, and the most fulfilled and the most even, mentally, than I've ever been. The ugly for me is that I lost so many what could have been good experiences, good relationships, those kind of things, because I was told I didn't believe enough or have enough faith. That's the one that fucked me up for a long time. How about you? As far as the ugly, what about you? What was your experience?
Ugly, I would say, I'm going to try to give a less obvious answer here, because I don't want to repeat something that's been said ad nauseum. I'd say that there's a lot of politics in the church, like as far as how the church runs and operates on a daily basis. The individuals that run the church are very flawed human beings, just like everybody in the congregation are, and they're trying extra hard to pretend like they're not. But everybody has an agenda of some kind, and that agenda is usually to glorify themselves. And so they'll go up in the pulpit and they will act very different behind the pulpit than they would anywhere else. You have a pastor who goes up to the pulpit and is like, and the Lord wants you to believe, and he'll talk like that. Like, you're not going to McDonald's and saying, I need a number one, and I need to supersize that, and like it's just this fakeness that everyone portrays them as, and that's not unique to the leadership, but everyone in the congregation as well. And they're kind of taught to do that. Like, everyone's wearing a mask. They're not their true selves. No one is authentic in the church. Everyone's trying to look good for everyone around them. And I think that's the ugliest thing about that, is no one's comfortable being their true self in a church. Like, they're really not. They think they are. They'll talk about how they are, but they're not. They're lying to themselves, and they're lying to everybody around them. So yeah, I think the agenda and the disingenuousness of everyone in the church will be the ugly part of it.
And yeah, and thank you for saying that. And I do appreciate that you brought that up, because when I do get asked, Oz, what do you appreciate, or what means the most to you now, not being involved in a religion or bound by a faith or anything like that. When it's asked that way, it's usually the authenticity. That for many years I lived in this fishbowl where it was, you got to act a certain way, you got to talk a certain way, you have to present yourself a certain way, and when you do that day after day, month after month, year after year, again, that's part of the programming. That's part of the downloading, where it's like you have to fit this model, this mold, to be this good Christian person, And when I finally figured out that what you just alluded to, where I could be the most authentic version of Oz that I've ever been, my entire world illuminated. My entire world. And not only did I see me differently, I saw humanity differently.
Yeah.
I now learn to appreciate the human for the human, and no longer the human for their belief or lack of belief. I got to actually appreciate them for where they were at, what they were going through, what they were feeling, and it had no link, no ties to, or no associations with a God, a faith, a theology, any of that. I just got to appreciate where the fuck they were at, and I got to love them for who they were and right where the hell they were at.
Yes, that's exactly right. You experience a whole new level of empathy when you leave the faith. Like it's you instantly stop judge. Like as a Christian, you never thought that you were judging people. You would have shouted from the rooftops, "I don't judge anybody," but you absolutely are, and you don't realize you are until you've left the faith, and you're like, "Holy shit, I was the most judgmental motherfucker I've ever met in my life." But now you have this next level compassion for people that you know people are genuinely hurting, and you genuinely care for them without an agenda. You care for them because you care for them, not because you're supposed to care for them, because Jesus,
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's you and I could probably talk at length about that. But yeah, and I would encourage anybody, if you're in the space right now where, you've become skeptical and you're questioning this belief in this religion, this way of life, make sure you're asking all the questions. And if you find that you're surrounded by people, or you have a circle of people around you that, when you start asking questions, become critical of you, they become judgmental of you, those are not your friends. Those are not your friends. Your friends, if you're asking questions, they should be the first ones to say, "Hey, if you don't have the answers, how can we help you find the answers? Or find the best answers." So if you have those people, that they become critical, it's time to back away. It's time to back away and probably just find some new damn friends. Because those aren't the people you wanted to be surrounded by. So now that Ricky, that was a great conversation, and I do appreciate you digging into your past there. And sometimes for most of us, it can be difficult, or at least kind of digging back into that. But we oftentimes don't realize how many people we help by opening up and being, like you said, being transparent and being authentic with those stories. So I appreciate that. So before we kind of transition here, we talked about that you and I started talking on TikTok, and you've had great success so far on that platform. So first of all, before we talk a little bit about that, how do they find you there on the Ticketh of Talkeths?
How did you find me?
No. How do the viewers find you if they want to find you on TikTok?
Yeah. My handle is Captain Dadpool 86. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at for now.
Yep, and there's not a better TikTok name out there, Captain Dadpool.
Yeah, it's very accurate representation of me and my life.
And you did mention it earlier, but thank you for your service. We appreciate that. We want to acknowledge that. And your TikTok content, the reason I love it is you're right in the middle, which I think is a perfect place to be. You're right in the middle where it's very thought out. You can tell that you bring the education and the knowledge and the experience to the table, but you're also not afraid to call out bullshit when it's bullshit. And you're not over the top, you're not nasty or ugly, but you're just very a matter of fact. So far, what have you found? What's your with your approach so far? How do you feel about the response you get, especially from theists?
The response it's really interesting. I was not expecting to get as much attention as I've got. And I think what I've realized is in the atheist community, they're lacking the voice that has the experience of a Christian who is also educated and is also empathetic. Like I genuinely, like you and I, we genuinely understand where they're at. If I see a crazy Christian and they say some batshit wild stuff like I'm going to hell or whatever, I'm not angry with them because I understand. Like I was there at one point. They just haven't gotten to where I am now. So I try to reach that level. And I've gotten a ton of comments and DMs of people just asking me questions like, "Hey, I'm on the fence about this. I'm scared. What do I do here?" And so this is what people are needing to hear. I'm not going to reach people that are still indoctrinated. They haven't gotten there yet. But to the people that are on the fence, they're scared. And understandably so. The deconstruction is very scary.
Absolutely.
It can make you very depressed, very nihilistic, and they need someone with experience in that area to help them through it. But I'm blown away by the number of people that have asked me for help in that area. So I think that's something that's needed most, at least from my observation.
Yeah, and I will give you kudos and props to the couple of your lives that have been in. I've seen multiple people, either asking how or where they go, through that process, and you even in the text you kind of sense that fear, of how do I handle this? How do I approach this with my family? And that's usually the scariest bit. Is confronting your family with it and facing that. If you come from a religious, upbringing that or community, that type of thing. But what I want to do is we're actually going to do a little TikTok. We're going to do a little TikTok. Ricky, or would that bother you if we do a little TikTok?
Oh, that sounds fun. Let's do that.
Let's do a little TikTok.
What do you think about, or what do you know about Jesus?
I am so glad that you asked. But which Jesus? Because you see, Jesus was a common name in the Second Temple time period. This Jesus lived about 100 before Central Era. He was charged with practicing sorcery and tried by the Sanhedrin. He was executed and was hung on the eve of Passover. Next we have Jesus ben Sirah, was a Jewish sage living around 180. He even wrote a non-canonical book of the Old Testament. This Jesus was a wandering Jew and preacher who apparently was always close to getting killed due to his teaching. Then, oh look, another Jesus who was reported to have been a miracle worker and upset the Maccabean king by preaching the end times. And he was executed by being hung from a tree on the eve of Passover. However, the nail in the coffin, that is the Jesus of the Bible, is here. Not Josephus himself, but Josephus' father. He was a member of the Jewish priesthood and someone who would have had this firsthand experience with the Jesus of Christianity. But I'll leave a link in the description so you can read it for yourself. For anyone else who's interested, I highly recommend you read it too. It's not too long, not too short, and it's a great read.
Well, please stop destroying these people's arguments because it's getting a little too easy now. Now I have someone on that actually has, like, I don't know, links and more information I can read about. You're not just leaving me with a believe it or not, take it on my word, or hey, that's your opinion, kind of thing. It's interesting, and I was going to say this earlier too, is like the more I keep reading and looking for the answers, and I'm actively asking now for the best explanations, the best evidence, like, what is the best evidence for Jesus Christ's, the Christian Jesus's existence? And the arguments I get and what I find is just not sufficient. And I don't want to say that I'm a mythicist, but I'm starting to lean on at least the fact that a lot of these stories may not be attributed to all the same person, or that they kind of picked and chose which parts of that they wanted to include as they were building the religion. And studying early Christianity is actually really fascinating, how the religion came to be, who was involved, all that kind of stuff, why they did what they did, the parts of the Bible that didn't meet the criteria that they had set forth for the four Gospels. All these things were not stuff that was taught to me in school and in church.
Yeah. Even in college, like the idea of Jesus not historically existing, that's not something we're taught. That's something I discovered on my own. But as I was going through my deconstruction and the later portion of my deconstruction, when after like several of my prior held beliefs had already fallen away, I made a very real effort not to look into the historical authenticity of Jesus. Like I was afraid of what I would find, like very genuinely. And once I left the faith, like, you know, I explained, I left the faith intellectually years prior. But in my heart, after I had left in my heart, for lack of a better term, that's when I was like, okay, let's dig into this. And so, yeah, I started looking, and it's crazy what you find. Like, there is no historical evidence for the existence of Jesus. There's like 30 plus historians who existed during the time he was alive or within a century after. There's only 2 singular mentions of him from 2 separate historians, Josephus and Tacitus. And there's all kinds of problems with both of those. But the bigger issue is,
but isn't the Tacitus one though didn't even reference Jesus? Wasn't it saying Christus?
Yeah,
like they didn't use the right name.
Yeah, there's that's another part of like the whole debate. Like, you can't even take any that what they say as factual, because there's all these different like interpretations or cross interpretations or possible Christian influences. Like neither of them existed during or were alive when Jesus was around. So they both, even if it's authentic, they got their information from other Christians. Like, they were eyewitnesses. And Christians like to reject that. But I'm like, okay, what about all the eyewitnesses that were there? All the miracles that Jesus performed, raising people from the dead, curing the blind, healing leprosy, witnessed by hundreds of thousands of people, not uneducated people. A lot of them were educated. They would have written these things down. Think if a guy died and was raised from the dead, he wouldn't fucking write about it. Like, no one wrote any of these things. Like, why? Why did no one write about these things? Oh, because he never existed in the first place.
What's interesting is the if I bring up the Noah's Ark story or any just unbelievable story, a Christian jumps straight to, well, yeah, but God did it. But God can do anything, so therefore God did it. But then if I ask, like, why are there no original copies of the New Testament document or of the Gospels? Why don't we have the originals? Well, paper doesn't last that long and blah, blah. So like all of a sudden this God that can do everything with a very mediocre task, making sure your book does not get destroyed over a period of time. He can't do it or won't do it. I don't know. But I would just expect to see much more evidence, much more pieces of the puzzle. And for someone like you or I or Oz, when we were seeking real evidence and we were seeking, like legitimately seeking to learn and follow the faith, we should find evidence that supports that so that we reconfirm what we're doing. What we find is evidence that throws us off, that throws us and pulls us further away. And so is that by design? Like, if this God exists, did he remove the evidence actively so that we wouldn't figure it out correctly? It makes no sense to me. If I'm genuinely seeking it, I should be able to find the right answers. It's not a test like that. I hear that one too, where it's, oh, well, you're being tested because it just doesn't fit the bill.
Yeah, or they'll say that there was this mass effort to eradicate Jesus from history, like the burning of Rome by Nero, or any of this other stuff. Like no, sorry. Like, even if that were true, we would still have something. Like, someone would have written something down in stone, or we would have something, but we don't. We just don't have anything, and it doesn't.
Did you hear the story of those guys in the Middle East, and they were poor farmers, and they were digging for bird droppings. They use it as fertilizer. And so they're digging for bird droppings, and they find a 3-meter long clay pot. And inside that clay pot were some of the original not originals, but Egyptian copies of some of the Gospels that were not included in the New Testament, things that were burned, most likely outside of that. So like the Gospel of Thomas and things like that. Anyway, so they don't know what they found because they're not educated people. They bring it home, and they have these. I mean, these are bound books, and some of the pieces of the papyrus they were burning to start fires in their house. It's like, anyway, they eventually someone discovered them, you know, and was like, holy shit, like, you know, we need to hold these. But it's interesting to me, the stuff, when we talk about the evidence of like, well, that was just to get rid of, you know, the Jesus or whatever. Well, the organized Christian church or different Christian sects at that time were burning copies of books that did not feature their interpretation. You know, like I can remember there was at least one council where they said, like, we're only accepting gospels that mention the resurrection. Like, if your gospel doesn't mention the resurrection, it's not getting canonized. Mm-hmm. And so that was one of the requirements for getting it into there. So one of my favorite questions to ask Christians is like, do you know how your Bible came to be? Like, do you know the people that put the words in the book, that picked what books go in there, you know, all that kind of stuff. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah. Sorry, I was reading a comment down there. Lost my train of thought.
That was about Jesus mythicism.
Yeah.
Which I don't know if it counts as mythicism, because I don't necessarily say that there was never a preacher named Jesus that existed. I just don't think that all of the stories that we have about this person are true. Therefore, the caricature of Jesus is a myth. That's kind of what I think of when I say mythicism. I'm not saying that a person didn't ever exist that maybe, you know, was a preacher that then started getting some of these things attributed to him over time. But that's kind of where I'm at.
Yeah, and I wouldn't go as far as to say that Jesus was created out of thin air based off of other mythologies, but there is some interesting, you know, points to that. Like even in Norse mythology, Odin hung himself from a tree and stabbed himself in the side with a spear, and then died so that he could learn like how to read runes, and then he came back alive, and so that weirdly parallels Jesus. But yeah, like there's several other Jesuses that were mentioned. You know, Jesus ben Pandira, Jesus ben I can't remember all the names now, but like they were executed for sorcery or going against the Roman government. And at the time, the Jews were very desperate to get out from Roman rule. So it seems like they created or used this figure, but embellished a lot of what he did to add or to create authenticity for their claim that the Messiah came back, which would give them a reason to rebel against Roman rule. And ultimately, once with a big help from Paul, once Constantine came around, they were successful, at least from what I've read so far.
Yeah, I read so the Constantine thing's pretty interesting, and I know, and hopefully I'm not reciting this incorrectly. Maybe you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I know that sun worship was something that was common at that time, and that's a lot of things came about that the Jesus, as we're going into Christmas, you know, there were other small pagan cults that also maybe worship their god on certain holidays, one of them being their birth, which happened to be December 25th, and a lot of other sun worship. Now I know Constantine, wasn't his brother took control, and he had to take, and he was fighting a battle over, he was like on a conquest elsewhere and came back, and his brother had taken control, and so he had used the sun god as his image on his shield when he stormed the city. That was the god that he chose out of the hundreds of gods to use. And when he won the city, he was then told that was Jesus, the god that helped him, because that was the sun god that they were attributing to that claim. And I think I read that in a Bart Ehrman book. At least I'm paraphrasing it. But is that something? Am I saying the truth here, or am I just making stuff up?
No, you're right. From what I remember, supposedly Constantine had, or his brother, I can't remember which now, had a vision, and in the vision, God revealed this symbol in the cloud, and everyone's probably seen it. Everyone's seen it before. Once you see it, you'd recognize it. It's like a P with an X over it, and that was a symbol. And you put them all on their shields, So that's how God revealed himself to Constantine. Yeah, it gets really hairy when you start digging in there, but it's a lot of fun.
It's just weird to think like all of this could have been like, where would we be today if he lost that battle?
Yeah.
Or chose a different god, for that. And then reading about a lot of the Egyptian gods, I see a lot of parallels between like Horus and Jesus or Isis and some of these other Egyptian gods that I didn't even know about, that predate Jesus by hundreds and thousands of years. And so it just makes more logical sense to me that these stories had been floating around. Rome with Constantine was looking to unify the country because they didn't like the pagan cults, which were all different, pieces of the puzzle. They wanted a singularity. And Rome at the time, at least in ancient times, religion and the government were one. A lot of the sacrifices that you did to pagan gods, you also sacrificed to the emperor. You sacrificed to these other things. So it was part of the economy. So Roman being able to pull that under one umbrella was a unifying piece, and they just needed the religion to work, I guess, if that makes sense. And that's where we get the councils of Nicaea and all this other stuff, things that I just didn't know about being a Catholic, raised a Catholic. But I did get a little bit of you and Oz's religion because I went to a non-denominational Christian high school, which was mainly Southern Baptist and Protestant and Lutheran. No, not Lutheran. Methodist.
Yep.
And Protestant. Not Protestant. What's the other one that starts with a P?
Pentecostal.
Pentecostal, yeah, where they don't cut their hair and they wear skirts. So I remember and we would have temple. They would do temple on Thursdays where we would go and we'd have basically church service, and they would invite different pastors in from different places. So the years I was there, I got a different denomination preaching each week, and it was actually kind of interesting because the stuff with the people convulsing and hands things and people crying and falling on the floor and stuff, that doesn't really happen in a Catholic church. Yeah. So I was exposed to that at the age of 16, 15, and I think I had enough sense at that time to be like, the hell is going on here? Like this doesn't make any sense. And it kind of pushed me back to Catholicism because that was my normal. That was my norm. That's where I felt comfortable. I like the structure of it, that kind of thing. And it may have prolonged my deconversion story or my deconversion time.
Yeah, definitely. Exposure to other denominations definitely brings in the picture that Christians are all just constantly fighting with each other. Like they can't agree on their own shit. And they're dogmatic about it. And this group thinks that group's wrong. That group thinks this group's wrong. And like, no, your interpretation's wrong. You're practicing this ritual wrong. And it's insane. But the crazy thing is they're all able to somehow justify that.
Yeah.
In their exegesis of the text of the Bible. So they all think they're right and they all think the other one's wrong. And then you start to realize you can make the Bible say whatever you want. Mm-hmm. If you want to believe this, you'll find a way to justify it. If you want to believe that, you'll find a way. And when the Bible can mean anything, it means nothing. This is what I like to say.
Did you explore any other religions before you decided to be or discovered you were atheist? Like, did you explore Islam or Judaism or anything else?
No, actually, I didn't want to replace my religion with another religion. I'd already experienced how damaging religion can be. And I just wanted to live life for myself.
I think you said earlier about God seeming to interact with people so much in the Old Testament and New Testament. And then I always say he went on vacation because now he's just non-existent. And the other thing that I like to say too is once you know how the magic trick works, religion stops working. And you can, if I know that on stage David Copperfield is cutting somebody in half, right? But I know how the trick works. There's another set of legs, the person's curled up in the box, whatever. I can't go to another magic trick where it's a different person cutting somebody in half and not know what the problem is with this. Like it doesn't work mentally. The magic trick is off. The veil's been pulled. And so like when someone sends, my mom does the same thing that you get the books, and it's like, here, read this book, and you look down and it's a Lee Strobel book, or a Ray Comfort book, and you're like, oh Jesus, and you'll read it, but it doesn't work. You know how the magic trick works. So this evidence that especially people are passing around on TikTok, either Jesus blood or the ark was found, or how do you know that there isn't a creator, or somebody's talking about a banana, whatever it may be, like those arguments don't work anymore. So what would you say to those people that are passing those videos around on TikTok that think it's good evidence?
I would say, and I'd actually quote Ecclesiastes on this, there's nothing new under the sun. This shit's all been said before. I made a TikTok recently about this kid who was claiming that God revealed to him that he's coming back soon. Like, you know how fucking long this has been said?
Yeah.
There is nothing new on this shit's been said before. It's been said again. Like, you guys are recycling the same shit generation after generation. And none of it is coming true. So I would definitely tell people, stop creating a carbon copy of something that you've heard from somebody else.
Right.
Do your own fucking research. Make sure it's from an independent, unbiased source, and try to think about it without an agenda in mind.
And the Ark, the blood, Ark of the Covenant is all Ron Watt. And it only takes about 3 minutes of research about who Ron Watt was to completely destroy anything that he ever found.
Yeah.
He's not an archaeologist. He has never participated or conducted an archaeological dig ever. And he's never, you have to have I think at least a bachelor's maybe in archaeology to even conduct a dig in Jerusalem. They don't have any record of him containing any permits or anything to do this stuff, which he claims he did. And then you start asking, like, how the hell do they know that he has Jesus blood? Like, just ask that. How would you substantiate that? How would you know that it's Jesus blood? It doesn't make sense to me why people think that one's a good argument. And I see it a lot. I see it a whole lot. I have people sending me that link like every hour.
Yeah, definitely. It's especially with like the age of the internet. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't take long to learn this shit.
Yeah,
like it's free now. You used to have to pay thousands of dollars to learn this shit.
Yeah,
you can do it for free now, instantly. Like,
yeah, you can even watch. You can watch people's the seminary school. A lot of them have YouTube channels.
Yeah,
where you can watch the actual lectures that they're given in these classes. I know I watch a lot. I'm going to say Bart Ehrman again because I like the way he talks, but not just him. But there are a lot of people like him that have blogs where they upload their sermons. They upload their lectures, and you can take that lecture and validate it yourself with another source. And even most of the stuff that he talks about, I've been able to validate with Christian biblical scholars. It's not debated information about where the Bible came from, who created it, and where this stuff came from. It's historically evident. Oh yeah, by the way, if you guys have questions, it's going to be time here in a second, so I want you to get your questions ready. Put them in the chat, and Oz is going to read them off. Oz is going to try and read them off while clicking them, which is going to be difficult because he can't do two things at once. But I guess we could talk forever. Maybe he wants us to ask questions, so maybe we'll move to that. And then I did want to say too, like we're about the same age, and I did not go to Iraq because I don't do well getting shot at. So I appreciate your time in the service, and you go so I don't have to, which was fantastic. I like the way that our system works, where we can handle it that way. And I'm glad you were able to take advantage of the GI Bill and get some education, which sounds to be like probably one of the best decisions you've made.
Yeah, at least as far as where I'm put now. I joined the military at a time where I was basically homeless, and I didn't really have a future. My dad had been in the Army for 20 years, and he was always telling me, you need to do it. And I was just like, I tried to become a policeman, like all this other stuff, and nothing works. I was like, fuck it, I'll join the military. So that's what I did, and I didn't really do it to serve my country.
Yes. Well, I have 3 friends of mine that are also in the military in different branches, and I'm not so sure they were expecting to serve the country either. They were kind of either getting employed or getting an education, and this kind of worked out that way. But I people that are in that position like you were in, that join the military, do you think that gives you an opportunity that you wouldn't have had otherwise?
Yeah, definitely. I definitely wouldn't be who I am today without that experience. At the time, I had a massive, this may come as a shocker, I had a big inferiority complex. I was very insecure. I had no confidence whatsoever. So that was part of my push to join the military, is that this will help me gain that confidence that I needed. And partially it did. I did the deployment thing, experienced a lot of things that most people don't experience. And there's some very negative things that come along with that too. Don't get me wrong. But it did give me like the confidence that I was looking for. But yeah, that's why I joined. Some people grow up, I'm gonna, when I get old enough, I'm gonna join the military and serve my country.
Yeah.
That's great. That's awesome. That wasn't me. I needed, a future, which I didn't see that I had. So the military gave me that.
Well, Oz, you gonna come in here and do some Q&A? Q&A time.
Back again. That's all I got. Stream's over. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, I am. We just started hitting them up on the.
Just fun fact though, before we get going, Oz tried to join the military, but he's not tall enough.
Really?
Yeah, they don't make youth size uniforms.
Well, at least you tried.
No, that's not what happened. I actually did try.
It's a coffee table behind him. That's what those are.
I'm showing my age, but when I went, they said that when I tried to enlist, they said, "Oh, you can't have jailhouse tattoos." And I said, "Well, here's the thing: is I've never received a tattoo in a jailhouse, so I'm not sure how this works." And they're like, "Well, no." They're covered up now, so you can't see them. But they're like, "Well, no, those are very obviously jailhouse tattoos." I was like, "No, that was me and my friend drunk on a couch tattooing each other with."
That's a jailhouse.
Yeah, well, I know, but I wasn't in a jail. You can't tell me I was in a jailhouse getting a jailhouse tattoo when it was actually
you don't want to join the military. You don't want to get drafted. Just go ahead and get some jailhouse tattoos, and you'll be safe.
Well, they'll let you now. You just couldn't.
Or just get a bone spur in your heel.
There you go.
And my wife just said in the chat, Oz gives himself jailhouse tattoos. I give myself tattoos. They are not jailhouse. I actually bought a professional tattoo gun.
A professional tattoo. Listen, I can go out and buy a Da Vinci surgeon machine. It doesn't make me a surgeon.
Oh, I didn't say I'm a tattoo artist. I'm just saying that
you said it professional, like that carried some weight.
It's a professional gun. It doesn't make me
I do have a tattoo appointment coming up in a couple weeks to get my forearm done. That's going to say Oz on it.
Yeah. Oh, now I'm happy. Okay.
It's actually pretty funny, Oz. I got my own tattoo. I did a bunch of tattoos on my military buddies, and I've done a few on myself. So that's pretty funny to hear.
And actually, and I did it. And this is actually the first time I'll say it live. So on my upper thigh, I tattooed just to, I guess, mock, you want to say, or be funny or facetious. I tattooed King of Kings and Lord of Lords on my leg, because in Revelations it says that he will come back on a horse with King of Kings and Lord of Lords tattooed on his leg. So I was like, well, I can do that shit too.
You're fulfilling prophecy.
I am the Jesus.
I had a scripture right here, and I
Okay.
tattooed over it just to make it look like claw marks.
Nice.
So that was a handy skill in my deconversion, is I could cover up my own Christian tattoos.
I have rules with mine, and I will not do words. There will be no words on my body.
See, I
It's
prefer
not that. It's really not.
Yeah, and my wife followed up, but you are not a professional, sweetheart. I know that I'm not a professional.
Yeah. Also, don't ever get a wedding band tattoo. Don't do it. Don't do it.
He said, don't do it.
Why, you can just roll it over.
Real quick, guys, if you have a question, you have a question for Ricky, for Jeff, for myself, we've had serious parts of the conversation, also funny. So if you have a funny question, you have a serious question, go ahead and put them in the chat area, and we'll take care of those. And remember, Super Chat is activated. It's activated. It sends you straight to the top. But so I got this. Well, I have a terrible memory. My wife will be able to tell you. But I got this $100 bill rose tattooed on here, and where all you see all the thick black here, I had Romans 12:2. Be not conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Yeah, all that shit. Romans 12:2 is right there, and I was like, nope, that shit's getting covered up pronto.
Mm-hmm.
But it's always there.
Fuck you, Jeff. So here we go. We got our first question for
No, get that off the screen. We're not talking about his questions without super chat.
Oh yeah, no super chats. Sorry, John, you're out. Thanks, I forgot about that.
Maybe you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to copy and paste his question and re-ask it, and then you can answer it that way without giving him any credit.
Yes, do that.
Since he won't super chat us.
We have a C and Warby said that they are just here simping over Jeff. Just so you know.
Seems like that happens a lot.
All right, so we have a question for Dadpool. And this comes from the atheist troll.
Yeah,
the other Jesuses are completely disputed in scholarship as actually being Jesus the Nazarene. How did you come to your conclusion that they are not Jesus?
Nazareth didn't exist until I might have the number wrong. If I remember right, I think it's like 60 years or 160 years, something like that. After Jesus, like there was no Nazareth during Jesus's time. So automatically, it's like that title is very off. And there's some disputes about that, but the overall consensus that I've found is, Nazareth wasn't a place when Jesus was around. Let's see, let me reread this. Yeah, and there's absolutely no way that they're completely disputed. These other Jesus, we have better records of these other Jesuses than we do of the biblical Jesus. Like, we know these guys existed. We have those documents. We don't have anything on the biblical Jesus at all. So, weird, you know?
I don't understand why it would be removed. Like, why, if God exists, if the Christian God is true, why wouldn't we at least have the documents to support the religion? Like, why wouldn't he at least give us that? I'm not asking to be... Yeah, I don't have to be. You don't have to like do this weird thing where you mess with my freedom, my free will. Just give me the document so I can figure it out on my own. Like, if you're a genuine seeking person, you should come to that conclusion. But God doesn't have a problem with interacting with free will anyway, so I don't get that one.
And we have a super chat of $5. Pastor John said he will unsubscribe if you make me a mod. Make me a mod now. Done.
Atheist cat, like it.
He's pretty good. And Atheist Cats is also a historian.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so I always call him when I need an answer about something in antiquities, because he's really good with some of those pieces of antiquities.
Oh, that's cool. See, I'm still very new to the atheist community, so I'm still trying to learn who everybody is.
Oh yeah.
So,
I think we have our own little sect of atheism going here with a group that we've gathered, and it's always nice to know who's who and who you can go to learn about certain things. And with Atheist Cats, I use him too to validate, like, hey, I need a source for this. Like, can you find me a published document that has to do with this subject that I can read, rather than just going to Google and trying to figure out where a scholarly source is for X document. He has a library of stuff he can get me.
There's actually a guy who
sorry, guys, we have another question here real quick. So,
okay.
The Juggalo Razam for $4.99 asks, when I ask for proof of God, most common answers are look around or historical timeline of the Bible. What's the best response?
Yeah,
The wind.
do that. Look around. Look at the historical timeline of the Bible. Just do that. You're not going to get the answers you think you're going to find, but once you start looking at empirical, objective evidence from peer-reviewed sources, from unbiased New Testament scholars, you'll see. Sorry, we don't have any evidence that Jesus ever existed. I would be all too willing to accept it if I was given it, but I haven't seen anything, and it's not for lack of trying. Believe me, I have tried very hard.
TART Show does everything for more unsubscribers. And that's why we're going to lead right into this. Another super chat from Atheist Cats. Since Cheapo does not know how I can't read tonight. Histography works, though there is no completely disputed in scholarship. Historians do not all agree on Jesus.
You know what's funny is when people use the popularity argument, and then I hit them with more people don't believe in Jesus than do on this planet. And they go, no. Christianity is the biggest religion. And I'm like, yes, but they're only 30% of the world's population, 33% of the world's population. You have all these other people that don't believe in your piece of your religion. So it's just interesting that they can't do math. Simple math. Math.
Jeff, they read the Bible.
Oh, that's true. The Bible does say it's true. Yeah. So.
All right, guys. Any more questions for now? A couple. He's been good in the Q&A. I want some more. Now I'm gonna call him Slick Rick in here with the good answers. Any more questions for debate? You never know what Pastor John's gonna say. I mean, he comes on streams talking about having sex with dead people. I mean,
that's true.
Hey, I'm not about to kink shame. All right. You like what you like. I'm not.
It was a conversation about consent and morality.
Oh.
And his argument was, how would we know it's immoral to have sex with a dead body?
So hold on. I want to tee this up properly. Ricky, based on you studying biblical theology and understanding morality according to the Bible, how do we make sense of having our 4-year-old sit on our lap and talking about necrophilia? How do we do that?
I haven't had that experience. That's a tough one. Morality biologically comes from the evolution of our tribal based survival mechanism. Like our morals come from the desire to ensure the survival of our tribe. And that may include, or that may apply to other tribes. They are perceived as a threat. We should attack them. Like that is entirely in the realm of possibilities. But when
you already made way more sense than Pastor John. Congratulations. you already made way more sense. Way more sense. That was perfect. That was perfect.
He wants me to call him. Like
he'll talk to you for hours. He'll talk to you for hours.
I wouldn't take the bait.
He's clinging. It's a little too clinging for me. I like it when people play a little hard to get.
You see the question? Somebody asked a question towards me. I want to address that one.
I don't see it, Jeff.
Oh, well.
Who's it from?
Here it is.
Thank
so
you.
it says, Jeff, as a Catholic, how did you rationalize or justify the Catholic systematic molestation of children? That would have been enough for me to get out. It's
Jeff.
pretty simple. You just ignore it. That didn't happen. Those are individuals. It's the same stuff that people make up for, molestation in Protestant churches. The difference is, and this is the argument the Catholics would use too, is like, this happens in every church. It's not just Catholic churches. And I'm like, that's a fucking terrible excuse. Like, you're telling me that this is rampant everywhere and this is somehow justified because it's rampant everywhere. It's just, you ignore it. The same way that I did not approach the evidence for Jesus's existence, the same way that I didn't approach evidence for why Noah's Ark is bullshit. I just pushed it out of the way. I wouldn't accept it. I actually got very defensive when people would bring that up. As a Catholic, I would immediately get extremely defensive and aggravated that was even questioned. So, but the Catholic Church as an organization has organized and protected child molesters. And they have a systematic way of grooming and preying on these young men and women. So I don't know why anybody would support such a thing. And especially when you look at, so the way that it works is you have archdioceses and you have bishops that run the archdiocese, and you have different archdioceses that then it feeds up like a governmental plan. When you give money in the church, in a Catholic church, that money doesn't necessarily go towards your church. It goes to the archdiocese, and the archdiocese will send that money out as they see fit. If you live in Pennsylvania, and then you have paid billions of dollars for court cases and paying off the families of children who are molested. And if you're okay going to church, putting money in the basket, knowing that your money is going to pay for the defense of child molesters, then that's on you. But I would want you to think about that the next time you go to church, in a Catholic church or whatever, and put money in the basket. Where's that money going? And could you do something better with it?
Well, and for the record, the Catholic Church, they catch all the heat because they have the most money, they have the most clout, within religion. But that's within all, Christian brands. And I say this publicly because he shares it publicly all the time. So if he can, then I will as well. But my brother was molested multiple times in church, in evangelical,
settings,
crazy, church. So we did not grow up Catholic at all. But he was molested, multiple times.
And that was never my experience in Catholic. The Catholic church I went into, that I never personally experienced that or heard about that happening in my particular church. But I know in other places in the Atlanta area where those stories did happen, and I'm in the same archdiocese, so my money would have gone to help protect them. And I think that also when you look at Catholicism being the largest Christian denomination, they have the most organization. Therefore, anything that any of their churches does reflects on them. If it's Southern Baptists, there's a Southern Baptist Association and 1,200 churches or so. You have the Methodist Church, you have other, fringe denominations. They're not organized under one umbrella. So it becomes one church, one pastor, one criminal case. So that's the difference. Although, right. Yeah, any molestation is not cool.
No, it's fucking disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't see anything else popping up here. And I'll give it a second, but Ricky, again, we appreciate you hanging out with us, man. And you gave us, our channel and the viewers tons of good things to think about, things to ponder, and that's really what we want to focus on, especially when we're talking about people that have already experienced a deconversion process, like you have, and not that it makes it more important, but I think it shows. I think it goes to show when you have somebody that you went to school and like I said earlier, you said, I decided to dig a little deeper and go a little further and research a little more, that you get there because are you familiar with Dr. Josh Bowen?
Name sounds familiar, but
Okay, so Jeff always has it on time. So he's a friend of our channel, and he's written a few books. Excuse me. But
Digital Harambe on YouTube.
Hammurabi.
Harambe, what is it?
Hammurabi.
Am I saying that right?
Hammurabi.
Hammurabi. Hammurabi.
And he speaks obviously English, but he speaks Hebrew and
Aramaic.
Aramaic. I can never say it right. Aramaic.
And something else that starts with an S.
Yeah, and he's brilliant, and he's in the same class as you are as far as the further he went, the more he read, the more he found out, the more informed he became. All of a sudden, he found himself being an atheist. Through going through the test. So, IQ, thank you. Yes, we're struggling here at the Atheist Roundtable to get the whole Hammurabi thing.
Hammurabi.
But you get it. Go check it out. But before we sign off, Ricky, anything that you would like to say to viewers, listeners, and maybe somebody that is in doubt? They find themselves all of a sudden being a skeptic, and they're trying to figure out what to do next, or what questions to ask next. Any advice you have for them?
Yeah, don't be afraid to entertain those thoughts. This isn't spiritual warfare that's happening. That's what the church teaches. This is your adult rational brain kicking back in after lying dormant for so long. It is okay to think about these things. It's gonna suck. It's not easy losing your faith. It is a very real pain that you feel for quite a while. But once you get through it, you will be a much happier and much stronger person from it. And you'll almost be grateful for your past because of it. So don't be afraid. Feel free to ask me or anyone else that you follow questions. We'll be more than happy to help in any way we can. But yeah, don't be afraid. All the best.
Yep, absolutely. No, thank you for that. And Jeff, anything from you before we sign off, my man?
No, I think this is going to be good. I think Rick, you're a good find. I'm glad we found you. That you showed up, and I can't wait to see how this relationship progresses and share information and get to know you better.
No, I'm excited. I'm very grateful that you guys had me on here. Thank you so much.
It's nice to get a community that supports each other, and not because you believe in a made up thing that you have to, or else you go to hell.
There's no agenda here.
Yeah, there's no agenda. Yeah.
All right. Well, for everybody that hung out with us tonight in the chat, if you go back, Ricky, and watch it later, you'll see that the live chat was it was popping tonight. Lots of great conversation going on in there, and so everybody's in the chat. We appreciate it that you hung out with us tonight. We always appreciate your time that you take out of your day to chat with a bunch of knuckleheads. So we do value that, and if you don't know, we do have a partnership with secularshop.com. So if you enjoy wearing secular or atheist gear, that's where you want to go to do that. And right now, until the end of the year, you can use the TART code that you get your 10% off. And then you can also use their 2020 code to where you're getting 30% off of everything you buy up till the end of the year. So we're double dipping, double, and you can take advantage of that. But until next time, thank you guys for your support. We appreciate it, and for all the live chats and the super chats, we appreciate it. The Atheist Roundtable. We'll see you next time.